So, on today's episode of Nurturing the Future 1001 Days to Save the World, I'm extremely happy to have Deborah with me as a guest. I met Deborah through a mutual friend of ours called Claire Steed, who runs the fantastic app Olki, which is all about the first 1001 days and helping parents to connect to why that really matters, that time period really matters, with amazing activities and research and knowledge. And then we linked in, and I was just really amazed at the depth of her work around the first 60 days of life. So, as you know, at Blossom and Berry, by the title of our podcast, we focus on the first 1001 days to save the world. But there's a whole other range of research which is super powerful, scientifically backed, that talks about the first 60 days. And it's pretty new here in the UK. I know that I only recently came across it myself. And so it's a great honor and privilege to have her on the podcast today to talk about her work, which is in devotion to this very, very special period in parent and babies' lives. So welcome, Deborah, to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I am so appreciative of you inviting me, and I look forward to having a wonderful conversation about all of this. Those important days, whether it's 60 days or 1001 days, they're all very important.
Absolutely. So do you want to just introduce yourself to those who are listening, if people aren't aware of your work? So yeah, if you'd like to say, how you've come across this, what's your motivation, what your passion is at the moment.
Okay, certainly. So I actually have to go back quite a bit because I got inspired when I was 19 years old and a freshman in college. And I didn't know what I wanted to major in yet. And my advisor had said to me, "You're going to need to declare a major." And I went home for the weekend and was watching a children's choir with my family. And as I was watching those children singing, this thought came to me. It was just like an inspired moment that all of the adults in those children's lives, those adults didn't know all they could know to help those kids become all they had the potential to become. And I thought, I want to do all I can to help children become all they have the potential to become. So I must have intuitively known that the earlier, the better. So I went into early childhood. I got a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. And that thought, that moment has driven my career entirely. Every step of my career has been based on that passionate moment. So I taught kindergarten for about 10 years. I had two daughters during that time. And then I created a community-based organization called Family Network. And then I coordinated a family literacy program at a community college, a technical college. And it was during that time that the technology had advanced enough that we were now able to know more about what was going on in young children's brains. Because when I was working on my bachelor's degree, it was only based on theory and behavioral studies. And now we had the scientific evidence of what was happening in brains and what was contributing to the way in which brains developed. And so I got so excited. And I got a master's degree in education and adult education, because now I was teaching adults about young children's brain development, and then worked for an advocacy agency doing presentations on early brain development, which was all based on Dr. Bruce Perry's neurosequential model. And he collaborated with the agency I was working with to develop this training that we did. And then the funding ran out for this advocacy agency I was working for the Brain Project. And I just said, I can't not do this. I have to do this. So I just started my own company called Brain Insights, with the idea of giving insights into the way that children's brains develop, but I do it in very simple, understandable, practical ways that can be implemented into everyday life.
Incredible. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I feel like there are certain people who, that when that passion drops in, it is the fire, you know, it's like the spark lights, and then it's what keeps you going, like you say, through different jobs, different leadership, different projects. It's still that flame of potential for all children. So that's beautiful to receive. And I think, I don't know which part of your journey this might fit into, but I think I once had some cards that were created, which were like on a beautiful ring. And like you say before, like now we have apps and smartphones and things like that. Yes, I have some of these in my office over there. I don't know how I've managed to get them. I can literally see them. I will go and show you. You won't believe that. Snap.
That's so wonderful. And so yeah, there's a whole series. So I was, like I said, I was doing these presentations. I love that you have these. Yeah, I was doing presentations, and then I thought, okay, people are loving understanding this, but how can we make it happen very easily in everyday life? So I put them in this format purposely to make it so easy. You know, there's so many wonderful books that share information with parents, but sometimes parents are busy. They don't always have enough time to read all that they want to read, or remember what did that book tell me I should do? You know, so I thought if it's just handy like this, that they could just flip open and get a suggested idea for an interaction or activity idea. And then on the back of the card, it provides, as you know, because you have them, it provides a brain insight to tell you, well, if you do this activity with your child or this interaction, this is how you're supporting their optimal brain development and overall development. I want to clarify why I said that, because a lot of times people think the term brain development is only about intelligence building or knowledge acquisition. So I trademarked a term which is neuro-nurturing, to try to convey that it's all about the entire child, all of who a child is, and nurturing that beautiful essence, that unique brilliance that's within every single child.
Absolutely. And these cards really are amazing, because I remember when I received them, and I'm not quite sure how I received them, but the messages in here are very much the messages that we gently encourage parents to contemplate in classes, because obviously what the power of baby massage, and why I've been so connected to massage and yoga is the somatics. So the fact that babies live through the felt senses. So rather than cognitively telling baby I love you, of course babies can pick up on the vibration of our voice and through that detect our emotions, but in terms of language development they can't understand that. Whereas with touch and yoga, with movement and physical proximity, with every touch, with every interaction, there is a sense of safety, of trust, of connection, which then allows, as you said, that left hand side of the brain to start to develop. And I agree, sometimes, you know, when we think about brain development, it's like, oh, we want to get them to these developmental goals to read or write, but actually left brain is all about your emotional intelligence, isn't it? And being able to regulate your nervous system, which is the foundation of everything, isn't it, ultimately?
It is. And if that child feels positive about themselves and about their relationships and have that good emotional regulation, that's going to allow later, when it is appropriate, age appropriate for them to do reading and writing, their brain is going to be ready for it. But they need all this preparation for the emotional foundation and the physical foundation for making all of that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
just going to say, yeah, if a baby or a child is stressed and their brain was overstimulated in the stress response areas, that learning is going to be inhibited. So it's all of what you just described is so very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, with massage and yoga, it's cross-cultural, it's cross-gender, it's cross-age. So, you know, and it's really cross-language, because we have lots of international branches where we have translated things into, you know, the native language. But also when I've done work in Malawi with my charity, there we didn't really have the language, but we were still able to communicate through sitting in circle with song, and then watching the baby's reaction, and then knowing that, yeah, this is something that is a beautiful activity to share, because our babies are telling us, not because I was telling them, because I'm the teacher or because I've got this idea. It was like, let's just be curious and playful and see what happens when we start to do this with babies. And then they were telling us with all the smiles and the, relaxed body language and everything like that. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing to do.
It is. And observing and attuning to the communications of the baby is so valuable. And they communicate a lot, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think it's this trying to get this understanding out to parents. I think some parents do have an understanding of infant mental health, but also there's still a lot of parents that are focusing more on the physical development, and as you said, maybe like more cognitive, as in like the developmental goals, so like the physical developmental milestones.
Yes.
Less so about infant mental health. It is changing slowly, but infant mental health, for example, isn't really offered as a contemplation before you've had a baby. It's
Right.
not really. It's all about like, preparing for baby. What do babies physically need to come into your life, into your home? And so that's the bit that I think what you're doing and what I'm doing is very important to share this.
You are so right. I had the opportunity not too long ago to speak with some new parents and expecting parents, and just asking about, well, what did you look into, and what did you try to learn and question about before your baby was born? And so they shared a few things, a lot about sleep, a lot about feeding, and then I asked, and what did you do, and in what way did you look into infant mental health development? Just dead stop. Nothing, and then they said, now that you mention it, I want to look into that, but they weren't aware to even look for it.
Yeah, and that's not a judgment if anyone's listening and they're like,
No,
well,
not at all. It's just how it is, and
yeah,
it just needs to become, as I say all the time, it just needs to become common knowledge.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, just
Could you share with everyone listening a little bit about the 60 days? Because obviously you've got your amazing organization with your newsletter, which your magazine, actually. I've just received your latest edition. And I love the way that you're really protecting babies with this work. It's really baby centered, isn't it? It's like, looking through the lens of the baby rather than say, parents, how do I get my baby to sleep, fit with my lifestyle, eat food, do this, do that? So can you share for people who are listening, what is your passion about that? Like if there was, say, like 5 key takeaways that someone listening today would be able to tune into on the 60 days.
Okay. I just want to back up a little bit and say where this first 60 days emphasis came from. I mentioned Dr. Bruce Perry from my earlier work. And at that time, it was focused primarily on birth to 5 and the emphasis of the extreme amount of growth and brain development that happens in those first 5 years. And then, with your focus on the first 1001 days, yeah, it kind of got narrowed down. But Bruce Perry and colleagues did research that found that if a baby has consistent nurturing responsiveness in the first 2 months, and their research refers to it as first 2 months, and the work I'm doing to promote it, I refer to it as the first 60 days. So I just want to clarify that. But if that baby has had that nurturing, consistent responsiveness in the first 2 months, and then maybe a lot of adversity happens after those first 2 months, that baby does better than a baby that had adversity for only 2 months and then everything got better. Wow. So it's remarkable findings. So what I say all the time is we can get behind and commit to 60 days. We can get the support, the support that parents and families and caregivers need to provide that consistent nurturing for 60 days, right? If we know we can make that kind of a impact, yeah, we could make a big difference. So I just wanted to explain that, first of all, before I get into this. But this is the first 60 days booklet. And you mentioned possibly discussing 5 areas. Let me just explain how this is designed. It's based on 22 myths that are commonly shared with parents. And so the myth is up at the top. And then, as you mentioned, all of my work, even the ring books you mentioned, are in the child's voice. So there's the myth stated here, then the child's response to that myth. And then this section is the neural nurturing knowledge. So this is the section on what science says about that myth, but in real simple, understandable terms. So to get to one of them, this is the first one in the booklet, and purposely, because I just feel it's very common that this isn't understood. And the myth is that if you pick up a crying baby too much, you will spoil them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me share with you what is shared then. So the myth is repeatedly responding to and picking up a crying baby will spoil them. So that's the myth. The baby says, I am new to this world, so I really need you to help me feel secure. While I'm a baby, learning that you will consistently meet my needs is one of the most important things you can do for me. And the neural nurturing knowledge is nurturing responses to your baby's needs are necessary and is not spoiling. Your baby is biologically designed for relationships, and infancy has been found to be one of the most critical times for nurturing relationships to have the most positive impact. Consistently responding to the expressed needs of a baby is exactly what a baby requires. The impact of respectful nurturing responsiveness actually is the opposite of spoiling a baby. The security of being near you and having needs met predictably leads to your baby's brain wiring for health, learning, behavior, and overall well-being.
Hooray to that, 100%. Yeah, and I love the way that you're doing it from the different perspective as well, because when you went into the baby, speaking on behalf of the baby, it's really hard not to soften when you see it from the baby's perspective. And I think that's really what has maybe happened a little bit, is that parenting is very much focused on the parent's experience, which of course, the parent is the soil in which the seed goes. So we must support parents. And parents that understand their baby's needs more can meet their baby's needs. So if we don't know what the needs truly are, then it makes our job a little bit harder. And then we get distracted when we go on social media and say, oh, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? Whereas actually, if we listen to the baby, then we get all the information, we need. So that's what's so lovely about the booklet.
Right. It's so reassuring for parents. They can feel assured. They can feel more confident. Oh, this is what science is telling me. And if I combine that with what my baby's telling me, it's hard to ignore a crying baby, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So,
there's some really, really strong research. Like I've been reading Joseph Chilton Pearce. Do you know his work of the magical child, and his heart coherence with babies, and how the mother's heartbeat is regulating the baby's heart rate, and so bringing baby into that sense of trust and safety. And so it's just the simplest of things. It's holding your baby on your left hand side close to your heart. Just that can help to bring baby back into that sense of safety. Cross-cultural, like I say, it doesn't matter whether it's the father or if you identify as a father or a mother, or identify a mother, a grandparent or whatever. It's just what the baby needs, isn't it?
It really is. And you're bringing up something. I don't know if you saw the newsletter I sent out to the First 60 Days movement today. And I can tell everyone that I have created the First 60 Days movement. It's free to be involved, and I send out a newsletter on a different topic. And then also, and you briefly mentioned that I have a bi-monthly digital magazine on the First 60 Days as well. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because you were talking about holding and the closeness, and that's what today's newsletter was about. And the synchronization. So it's beneficial for both the parent and the baby, or the adult that's caring for the baby. So it's beneficial for both. So a lot of the First 60 Days booklet is focused on the baby, but it is also included our myths about the parent and caring about the parent as well. It's all beneficial. So, for example, this myth is on perfection. And the myth is a baby needs parents to strive for perfection. And the baby says, I don't know what you believe perfect is, but when you value and accept yourself and respect and adore me just as I am, that feels pretty perfect to me. And then the neural nurturing knowledge says your baby feels each nurturing interaction as perfect. Of course, you want to be the best parent possible for your precious newborn. In becoming a new parent, it's natural to envision what it might look like and what you hope it will look like. As you envision your life as a parent, it's essential to make your vision realistic. It's so easy to think it will look like the pictures in advertisements or social media posts. This creates a pressure to live up to unrealistic expectations. So what is perfect anyway? Each individual has a different idea of what perfect might be. The more you recognize and accept the way things are and avoid wanting them to be different while setting realistic expectations for each minute, hour, and day can be really helpful. You are perfectly you. You are perfectly you, and your baby is perfectly who they are. The nurturing feeling of acceptance will feel just perfect.
Love it. Love it. It's so powerful. It's the simplicity of it, isn't it? It's the letting go, really, and the traveling from the head to the heart. Because
exactly.
I believe that inside of us, all of us, nature is so clever. I mean, nature is just, the most wonderful creator. And we have within ourselves, all of that wisdom in our DNA, all the ancestral wisdom. But when the head gets involved, we can push that wisdom aside and feel, that, like you say, we're spoiling a baby or being indulgent or staying in bed all day because, that's lazy and all of these things. Whereas actually the traditions, if we look back at, how women were revered as life givers, bringing in life into the world, and how other women supported women in that, and how women were celebrated for that 40-day period that we often see in many cultures around the world. I think what's really interesting is the way that the 2 months is also aligning with that first 40 days, which is, the normal sort of time when 6 weeks when perhaps you wouldn't be having your menstrual cycle, you're resting, you're establishing breast or chest feeding, whatever it is. And that's interesting that the critical periods are the same for the mother or the person who identifies as mother recovery, and the baby. So right. How do you have you looked into that?
Somewhat, not the specific 40 days, but just how important that is, that the mother is nurtured and supported as well, so that she can provide that nurturing, or whoever the caregiver is. But yeah, there is a recovery period for that mother, when we just specifically talk about that mother, and she needs that just as much. And that connection with her baby, and it's just, there's nothing that compares to that. So yeah, it's critically important. And again, to get back to the newsletter I sent out this morning, it was talking about that humans are carry mammals. We're designed to carry our babies. They're so immature, and they're more immature than any other mammal. And so we need to be able to do that, spend that time and hold that baby and get that synchronization happening, and all of the senses and another portion of the first 60 days booklet talks about the myth of you need all this equipment for a baby, to put the baby in this and put the baby in that. Well, carrying the baby is what is really, really needed. And not having the baby strapped in a carrier, they're not getting all those sensory experiences. They're not being able to move their body in different ways and different positions and different movements through space. So that carrying is really critically important.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Kuala Lumpur to study postnatal care for women, because Kuala Lumpur Malaysia has the lowest postnatal depression rate in the world.
Wow.
And so it's like 1 in 10, opposed to in the kind of US and the UK now, it's gone from 1 to 5, almost to 1 to 3 with recent research. So went there to try to understand what is the difference. And what I was told by many of the mothers speaking directly to them is that they were treated like queens during this first 40 days. So they were nourished and nurtured and massaged, and they were cooked for, and all they had to do was be with their babies, napping and resting and breast or chest feeding, whatever it was that they were choosing to do with their babies, to establish that central bond. So that's why I think it's so amazing that actually this knowledge we know now through science, but also we've intuitively known that in the fact that the 40 days postpartum tradition has just emerged, across the world, because women know how to tend to women know how to care for women, and women understand that after you've had a baby, you are a queen, and you need to be this way. So it's really interesting that the science actually is just completely mirroring what we've done in terms of community-based wisdom.
Yes, definitely. And that's something I talk about too with the first 60 days movement and committing to 60 days. We can get a community, a neighborhood to establish ways to support that new family, and provide what they need, and nurture them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so powerful. And everyone who's listening, just to really anchor that in what Deborah is saying here, it's 60 days. Can we put babies first for 60 days? Or can we put parents and babies first, let's say, as a society? Could we prioritize the nurturing care for parents, carers, and babies for 60 days? Because I would love to live in a society where we would be at least prepared to put 60 days in this time. And then when you look at some of the economics, like when you look at the World Economic Forum and look at how much money is spent actually rectifying things like disease or mental health, or I read something really shocking in a UNICEF report last week, which was that globally, a child between 10 and 14 commits suicide every 11 seconds in the world. I mean, if that's not a reason to look at what's happening in early childhood, yes.
We need to go upstream and start there. This is prevention. This is prevention for society and economically, both. Combination. It just makes sense completely, all the way around, and having that knowledge that you've experienced about the difference it makes for community to pull together. Yeah, that's what is so needed. And again, if we can commit to 60 days, so we need all of this for all of childhood, right? But begin it well, we
Yeah.
can commit to 60 days, and then we can go from there and support more the first 1001 days and the first 5 years and keep going
Yeah.
while that
Yeah.
brain is continuing to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am fully committed to the 60 days movement. I am a member, and it's very, very strange that your newsletter was saying what I've been saying today, because I haven't read it yet, but I'd love to receive them. It's a fantastic place to be as well, because you know that you're not alone. Because I don't have so many colleagues in the States, for example. And when I started to read your work, I was like, wow, like there's all these other guys here all doing this work as well. So if you're listening to this, I would really, really encourage you to, claim it, make a pledge, for the 60-day movement. Bring this into your work, whether you are a doula or a birth worker, a baby massage teacher, baby yoga teacher. If you're a parent and you're about to have a baby, craft and create 60 days of nurturing care for yourself. Really, really own this, because it's when we all get behind it, it will become a societal norm. And so, I'm very grateful you, Deborah, like heading this up and spearheading this and being so in integrity with everything that you're saying and creating these wonderful resources. So can you share with people, if they want to get involved, how can they get involved and take this pledge to support you and the 60-day movement?
It's so simple. You just go to my website, which is braininsightsonline.com, and there is a tab that says the first 60 days. And there's a drop down that gives you some information. And then it also has a join me page. And you just fill out this simple form and you can join. No, it's no cost. You will receive a welcome email with information. You will have the option to be listed on the members page. And if you want a link to your work or a social media page, you can put a link. And I encourage the members to get to know the other members, and you can click on other people's links and become aware of them, connect with them, and we'll just get this spreading. We're already in 10 different countries and 23 US states. And we're just continuing to grow. It's starting out small, but it's growing every month and spreading, like I said, to 10 different countries now. And I think 5 different continents. So
amazing. Well, I have already shared into the Blossom and Berry community, but I will reshare as a reminder. And anyone who's listening, really honestly, go and receive the information, connect with other, I call us village visionaries, the ones who want to recreate the village to support parents so they can support babies. And just get involved, like amplify your voice, share your knowledge, because we're all learning from each other, and we're all coming at it from so many different angles as well. And so it's lovely to cross-fertilize all the different ideas.
Definitely.
So
I was just going to add that within the newsletter that I send out, there's something that I call a promotable, and it's just a photo on a topic with just a brief bit of information that you can just download and you can share directly with people that you're interacting with or on social media.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to put all of this in the show notes from the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, just if you look in the show notes, you'll find how to find Deborah's amazing work. I really hope you've all been inspired by this conversation today. Like when I discovered you, Deborah, I was really like, wow, like you say, it's Bruce Perry's research, but then you've amplified the message and brought it into a simple way for parents and practitioners to understand, and it's just such a powerful message. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone who's listening will find out more. And it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Well, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. I love your passion, your knowledge, your experience, and the incredible work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show today.